How did a quiet, unassuming teacher rise to become one of history's most notorious despots? This is the perplexing question that surrounds the life of Pol Pot, a name that chills the spine of history. Yet before he was Pol Pot, he was Saloth Sar, born into the simplicity of a farming family in the heart of Cambodia. A young Saloth Sar had little indication of the path his life would take. A quiet childhood in rural Cambodia gave way to an education in France, an experience that would irrevocably shape his destiny. It was here, amidst the spires of academia, that he first encountered the potent ideologies of communism. These teachings, steeped in promises of equality and justice, would become the foundation for a regime that defied these very principles. From the classrooms of France to the killing fields of Cambodia, let us unravel the enigma that is Pol Pot. Scene script. Pol Pot wasn't born a dictator. His transformation was a product of time, circumstance, and ideology. Born Saloth Sar in a small fishing village, Pol Pot was an individual who on paper didn't seem destined for infamy. He returned to his homeland Cambodia in the early 1950s after a stint in France, where he was exposed to the ideals of communism. Little did his fellow countrymen know, he would become the architect of one of the most brutal regimes in modern history. Pol Pot found a home within the Communist Party of Kampuchea, the Khmer Rouge. He quickly climbed the ranks, not by sheer luck, but through a potent mix of charisma, ideological fervor, and an uncanny ability to manipulate power structures. By the mid-60s, he was the party's leader, steering it towards a vision of agrarian socialism that would ultimately result in catastrophe. But how did Pol Pot manage to rise to such heights of power? To understand this, we need to delve into the socio-political context of the time. Cambodia was a nation in turmoil, with the monarchy losing its hold over the people, and the United States war in neighboring Vietnam spilling over the border. The nation was ripe for a change, and Pol Pot seized the moment, presenting himself as the answer to Cambodia's woes. He promised a utopia, a society where everyone would be equal, free from the shackles of imperialism and capitalism. However, these grandiose promises were a smokescreen for his true intentions: to reshape Cambodia according to his own warped vision, even if it meant trampling over the very people he claimed to liberate. Pol Pot's rise to power was not a solo act. He was aided by a cadre of loyal followers who bought into his vision and a populace desperate for change. Yet, it was his ability to exploit the chaos and uncertainty of the time, coupled with his relentless pursuit of power, that allowed him to ascend to the pinnacle of political authority. Pol Pot's rise to power was as swift as it was ruthless. With power in his grasp, Pol Pot set forth to create his vision of an agrarian utopia, but the reality was far from it. Pol Pot and his Khmer Rouge regime took control of Cambodia in 1975, and in their bid to transform the nation into a classless rural society, they implemented policies that were nothing short of catastrophic. The Khmer Rouge were convinced that the path to utopia was paved with agrarian reform. They believed that by returning to a self-sufficient farming-based society, they could purge the nation of its capitalist and imperialist influences. However, their attempts at social engineering quickly devolved into a reign of terror. The execution of their vision was brutal and unforgiving. The cities were emptied out, with millions of people forced to move to the countryside. They were made to work in labor camps, tilling the land from dawn till dusk, with little food and rest. This was forced labor on an unimaginable scale, a gross violation of human rights. The Khmer Rouge also sought to eliminate anyone they perceived as a threat to their ideology. Intellectuals, professionals, even those who simply wore glasses, were seen as enemies of the state. This paranoia led to mass executions, often carried out in the infamous killing fields. The scale of these atrocities is hard to comprehend. It is estimated that nearly a quarter of the population, around 2 million people, were killed during Pol Pot's 4-year rule. Starvation was another grim reality under the Khmer Rouge. The regime's radical agrarian reforms failed to yield the desired results. The rice fields, worked so tirelessly by the people, were not enough to feed the population. Hunger was rampant, and malnutrition claimed countless lives. The regime's obsession with self-sufficiency also meant that they refused foreign aid, further exacerbating the food crisis. The brutality of Pol Pot's reign was not just physical, but psychological as well. The regime sought to control every aspect of life. tearing families apart and banning religion and education. The people of Cambodia lived in constant fear, never knowing when they might fall out of favor with the Khmer Rouge. In the end, Pol Pot's vision of an agrarian utopia was a facade for a regime that was violently oppressive, ruthlessly autocratic, and devastatingly inept. It was a reign of terror that left a scar on the very soul of Cambodia, a wound that is still healing decades later. In pursuit of a utopian dream, Pol Pot plunged Cambodia into a dystopian nightmare. Every reign of terror eventually meets its end, and Pol Pot's was no exception. Pol Pot, a name synonymous with dread, saw his reign crumble under the weight of its own atrocities. The year was 1979, and the scene was set for a dramatic shift in power. The Vietnamese, driven by a cocktail of political motivations and humanitarian concerns, stormed into Cambodia, effectively marking the beginning of the end for Pol Pot and his Khmer Rouge regime. The Vietnamese invasion was swift and decisive. Pol Pot's reign, which had been marked by brutality and bloodshed, found itself outmatched and outmaneuvered. The Khmer Rouge, the terrifying instrument of Pol Pot's reign, crumbled under the might of the Vietnamese forces. Pol Pot, once a feared dictator, was now a fugitive. He retreated into the dense jungles of Cambodia, living a life of a recluse. His days of ruling with an iron fist were over, replaced with a life in hiding, constantly on the move, forever looking over his shoulder. The years rolled on and Pol Pot continued his life on the run, a stark contrast to his days of unchallenged power. His former comrades turned on him, and in 1997 Pol Pot was arrested by his own Khmer Rouge comrades. The man who once orchestrated one of the darkest chapters in human history was now under house arrest, his power and influence a distant memory. Pol Pot, the man who once held Cambodia in his iron grip, was reduced to a prisoner in his own country. His downfall serves as a poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of power and the inevitable fall that follows unchecked brutality. It's a tale that echoes through the annals of history, a tale of a man who aimed to change the world, but in the end was himself changed by it. Pol Pot's legacy is one of devastation, but it's also a story of resilience and survival. The aftermath of his reign is a tale of a nation attempting to piece itself back together after enduring unimaginable horrors. In the wake of Pol Pot's fall, the remaining leaders of the Khmer Rouge were brought to justice. Trials were held, not just for the atrocities committed, but for their very ideology, their disregard for human life. These trials were pivotal, serving as a stark reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink when power is wielded without conscience. Yet these trials were more than just a quest for justice. They were a part of the healing process, a necessary step on the road to recovery. For the survivors, these trials were an opportunity to confront their tormentors, to seek closure, to start rebuilding their lives. The effects of Pol Pot's reign are still felt in Cambodia today. An entire generation was lost and the country was left in ruins. But Cambodia did not allow itself to be defined by this dark chapter of its history. Instead, it began to rebuild, to heal. Today, Cambodia is a country on the move. It's a nation that's striving to overcome its past, to forge a new identity. The rebuilding process has been slow and painstaking, but progress is being made. Schools are being built, communities are being revitalized, and a new generation is being raised with hope and optimism. The Cambodian people have shown remarkable resilience in the face of adversity. They've displayed an unwavering spirit, a determination to not let their past define their future. They've chosen to learn from their history, to use it as a tool to build a brighter future. The scars of Pol Pot's reign remain, but so does the spirit of the Cambodian people. Their resilience and survival are a testament to the indomitable human spirit, to our ability to endure, to recover, and to rebuild, even in the face of the most unimaginable horrors. In the face of such overwhelming cruelty, what lessons can we draw from Pol Pot's reign? This question, with its gravity and complexity, leads us to a crossroad of reflection and introspection. The first lesson is the importance of vigilance. In the face of extremist ideologies, complacency can be a society's worst enemy. The rise of Pol Pot and his Khmer Rouge regime didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process fueled by radical ideas and promises of a utopian society. However, beneath the surface of these promises was a dangerous ideology that sought to erase history, culture, and individuality. It's a stark reminder that we must remain vigilant, scrutinizing the rhetoric and intentions of those seeking power. We must question, we must challenge, and above all, we must never allow ourselves to be swayed by promises that seem too good to be true. The second lesson is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power. Pol Pot's regime, with its ideology of absolute control and brutal suppression of dissent, is a testament to the horrors that can ensue when power is concentrated in the hands of a few. This concentration of power can lead to corruption, cruelty, and the loss of basic human rights. The checks and balances that are integral to democratic societies are not just bureaucratic formalities, they are safeguards designed to prevent the rise of tyrants and protect the rights and freedoms of the people. Lastly, Pol Pot's reign teaches us about the resilience of the human spirit. Despite the horrors of the Khmer Rouge regime, the people of Cambodia demonstrated extraordinary courage and resilience. They endured, they resisted, and ultimately they survived. This resilience is a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity, a beacon of hope that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can rise and overcome. It's a reminder that we are stronger than our circumstances, that our capacity to endure and overcome is greater than any force that seeks to oppress us. However, these lessons should not just be theoretical musings. They should guide our actions, inform our decisions, and shape our societies. We must strive to foster a culture of vigilance, where extremist ideologies are challenged and questioned. We must work towards societies where power is distributed and checked, where leaders are held accountable, and where individual rights and freedoms are upheld. And we must always remember the resilience of the human spirit, fostering an environment that celebrates strength, courage, and the capacity to overcome adversity. Pol Pot's story serves as a stark reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink, but also of its capacity for resilience and redemption. As we reflect on these lessons, let us not forget the millions who suffered under Pol Pot's regime. Their memory serves as a powerful reminder of the past, a call to action for the present, and a beacon of hope for the future. The story of Pol Pot is a dark chapter in human history, one that we must never forget. The journey we've embarked on today has taken us through the life of a man whose actions have left an indelible mark on the world. The rise of Pol Pot, his reign of terror, and his eventual downfall are all pieces of a story that is as haunting as it is instructive. We began with the enigma of Pol Pot, a man who rose from obscurity to become the autocratic leader of the Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia. We traced his ascent to power, marked by a potent mix of charisma, ideology, and fear. We delved into his reign of terror, a 4-year period that saw the deaths of nearly 2 million people, a quarter of Cambodia's population at the time. Then we witnessed his downfall, a collapse brought about by internal strife and external pressure. His regime crumbled and he was forced into hiding, but the scars of his rule remain, etched into the psyche of a nation and the annals of history. We also explored the aftermath, the trauma and the healing, the trials and the tribulations. The legacy of Pol Pot is a country still grappling with its past, still seeking justice, still striving to come to terms with a tragedy of unimaginable proportions. Lastly, we reflected on the lessons learned. The story of Pol Pot is a stark reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink when power is wielded without check, when ideology is allowed to trample over the rights of individuals, when fear is used as a tool of manipulation. In remembering Pol Pot's reign, we honor the victims, we learn from the past, and we strive to prevent such horrors from happening again. The story of Pol Pot is not just a tale of one man's descent into tyranny, it's a cautionary tale for all of humanity. It's a call to vigilance, a plea for empathy, and a reminder of our collective responsibility to uphold the values of justice, equality, and respect for human life.